Coming up on 25 News Now at 5, a 17-year-old sentenced to 30 years in Victoria, plus an 18-wheeler catches fire down Navarro.
We're looking at a lot of cloud cover over the next couple of days, still staying on the cool side, but most of the rain will be ending. We'll talk about your work week coming up at 5 and 6, so join us for 25 News Now.
Now at 5 and streaming on CrossroadsToday.com, Victoria teen receives his sentence in a fatal shooting from last September. And a family is mourning after the death of their toddler, how the tragedy happened this afternoon. Plus, an argument over a parking spot at the Houston Zoo led to gunfire.
Well, we're going to stay on the cloudy, cool side. I'm going to call it sweater weather for a couple of days, but I'm going to make up the weekend for you. The next one is going to be good. We'll have all that coming up in a moment.
Plus, we have an update on the old downtown jail in Victoria and a temporary decision on its fate. You're watching 25 News Now at 5. Good afternoon and thanks for being with us. I'm Karina Garcia. 17-year-old Logan Robles of Victoria was sentenced to 30 years for the fatal shooting of 57-year-old Hector Gonzalez. Robles shot Hector Gonzalez multiple times after a verbal altercation back in September. First responders attempted to save the 57-year-old, but he died from his wounds. Authorities located Robles and two more teens in a nearby apartment complex, then the murder weapon in an alley behind that same apartment complex. The teen must serve half of his sentence before he is eligible for parole. This morning around 10, an 18-wheeler caught fire after one of its tires blew out. The incident happened on Sam Houston and Navarro. No word if the driver was hurt or the extent of the damage. Should it stay or should it go? For now, the Old County Jail in downtown Victoria will stay for at least 6 more months. Today, Victoria Preservation Incorporation presented a proposal to county commissioners asking the court to hold off on making any decisions for 6 months. During that waiting period, county leaders will accept bids for demolition and also review cost estimates to restore the 1940s building. Next Monday, county commissioners will review exactly how they plan to move forward. And now let's take it over to the weather wall with Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez.
Thank you very much. After a cloudy, cool weekend, some of you got rain, some of you didn't, but there was some rain around the area. Today we got up to 69 as a high temperature, and of course that is below where we're supposed to be. You know, it's spring break for some people, but by the time we get to this coming weekend, we'll be back to the upper 70s, near 80 degrees, and we'll have all those details coming up in just a moment. Karina, back to you.
Mac, thank you. Today, the Supreme Court extended the block on a state law that would give police power to arrest migrants suspected of entering the U.S. illegally. Critics of Senate Bill 4 called it the most dramatic attempt by a state to police immigration since Arizona law passed more than a decade ago. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says the state's law mirrored federal law and was, quote, adopted to address the ongoing crisis at the southern border, which hurts Texans more than anyone else, unquote. A tragic story out of Harris County. Police say a toddler died after a rideshare driver accidentally drove her over. That driver was then attacked.
In less than 30 seconds.
It's a moment frozen in time.
I grabbed my phone, and I dialed 911.
A family lost a child.
She used to play outside on her little bike.
A toddler run over by a rideshare driver. Those moments.
Hysteria, people running everywhere.
Deputies tell us the driver was bringing the family home. They all get out of the car.
The driver just pulled out. He thought the path was clear. The rest exited.
One of the kids, a 1.5-year-old girl, walked in front of the car. The driver moved forward and ran her over.
His level of sight was probably a little bit higher than the small toddler. And unfortunately, as he was going forward, just struck her with enough impact that dropped her into the vehicle and then dragged her for a bit.
Gonzalez shows me what happened and said people pulled the driver out and then started assaulting him.
It seemed like everyone started beating the male. I wish somebody would have contacted 911 immediately. There seemed to have been a delay in calling 911.
This witness, who doesn't want to be named, jumps in, picks up the child, and rushes them to flag down first responders.
Everybody was screaming, so I instantly went and grabbed my keys, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just go to the hospital.
But the 1.5-year-old didn't make it and died at the hospital. This father of 2.
My mind went. it went directly to them. So I felt sorry.
Rideshare driver went to the hospital but is expected to be okay. Investigators are now working to determine if charges will be filed against any one of those involved. A parking dispute at the Houston Zoo led to gunfire. Houston police say security guards opened fire at a woman who reportedly assaulted a man during an argument over a parking spot. That happened Friday afternoon. Officers received a call about the incident at around 12:15, or rather 2:15. They said the woman tried to leave the scene in a vehicle with children inside. When the vehicle hit one of the security officers, shots were then fired into the vehicle, hitting the woman multiple times.
This incident first started in the parking lot of the zoo. Two citizens were arguing over a parking spot. Okay, at one point, one of the citizens, a female citizen, assaulted the male. A security guard tried to intervene. She tried to flee from the scene. As she was trying to flee, the security guards were communicating via the radio. They tried to detain her out here on the street. Another security guard approached her. She hit him with her vehicle, and that's when apparently the shots were fired into the vehicle.
The woman was taken to a hospital in unknown conditions. It's unclear if anyone else was hurt. United Airlines CEO is revealing a new plan aimed at bolstering consumers' confidence when flying. Just in this month alone, at least 6 incidents have occurred mid-flight.
It's been a challenging month for United Airlines, with multiple flight mishaps making headlines, compounded by the fact that United is Boeing's biggest customer in the U.S., and Boeing is under federal investigation following a string of quality control lapses and in-flight incidents in recent months. Now, United CEO Scott Kirby is stressing the importance of safety to customers in a message Monday. United's most recent event happened last Friday in Medford, Oregon. One of their Boeing 737-800s landed and was found to have a missing panel under a wing, forcing the tower to halt all air traffic while crews searched for it on the ground.
We didn't find any debris or any panels or anything. Operations continue normally.
Among other recent incidences, the engine of a United Boeing 737-900 caught fire after takeoff from Houston. Then, same city, different jet, a United Boeing 737 MAX slid off a runway. And internationally, a United Boeing 777 left Sydney leaking hydraulic fluid. In all cases, the planes landed safely. Kirby assured customers that the unrelated events did get the airline's attention, and United has sharpened its focus. It will now expand training programs for pilots and mechanics, along with dedicating more resources to manage its supplier network. All moves designed to make flyers feel more comfortable about boarding United jets as the busy summer travel season nears. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
Governor Greg Abbott wants the Texas legislature to bring in investors behind large-scale home purchases. You can read the Texas Tribune article on our website, crossroadstoday.com. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click that notification bell. For now, stay with us. Violence erupted over spring break in Florida. Straight ahead on 25 News Now at 5, the latest on an active shooting situation in Jacksonville. Also ahead, sales have begun for the first over-the-counter birth control pill approved in the U.S. In Haiti continues. Gangs have attacked two upscale neighborhoods in the capital, leaving at least 12 people dead. Homes in the communities were looted early Monday morning, forcing residents to evacuate. The neighborhoods have remained largely peaceful despite a surge in violent gang attacks across the capital that began on February 29th. In Florida, spring break fun was shattered by violence. Authorities say there have been more shootings there than they can count.
Beachgoers running for cover at Jacksonville Beach, Florida over the weekend after multiple shots were fired.
I cannot emphasize the chaotic nature of the incident last night. We are currently working 3 separate, unrelated shootings.
They shoot no, just stay down.
The popular beachfront going into lockdown for some time as police secured the scene. 1 person killed and 2 others injured, now in critical condition. The suspects still on the loose.
This is multiple suspects and multiple scenes. We have multiple shell casings from pistol and rifle caliber weapons down on the ground. 2 of these firearms have been recovered.
Authorities on high alert with spring break hotspots shaken by gun violence.
This is Players Weekend. It's St. Patrick's Day. It's spring break.
Further south Thursday, body camera footage shows a standoff between officers and a 16-year-old boy accused of pulling a gun on the crowded shore of New Smyrna Beach.
Some cities in Florida have already been trying to crack down this year after dealing with violence in the past. Officials in Miami implementing the toughest restrictions we've seen so far, including curfews and DUI checkpoints. Since the beginning of the month, Miami Beach police arresting more than 250 people. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Online sales began today for the first over-the-counter birth control pill approved in the U.S. Opill can be bought on its website, opill.com, and on Amazon. Some major retail pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens have said they will offer Opill once they receive their shipments. The manufacturer suggested a retail price of $20 for 1 month supply and $50 for a 3-month supply. The company says when taken as directed, Opill is 98% effective at preventing pregnancy. The CDC says there is cancer that disproportionately affects African Americans, and there's no cure for it. However, changes have been made to help patients live longer lives.
It's a cancer of the plasma cells, which are antibody-creating white blood cells that protect against infection. Myeloma often strikes those over the age of 45.
And there's over 30,000 people each year in the United States alone that are diagnosed with this particular condition.
Hematologist Rafael Fonseca with Mayo Clinic says patients with myeloma may experience kidney failure, bone destruction and pain, and anemia. But in his years of training and treatment of myeloma, he's seen a shift in survival rates.
Over 25 years ago, patients had an average life expectancy of about 2 years. Nowadays, many patients can expect to live 10, 15, and even sometimes 20 years after their diagnosis.
Fonseca says that's due to advances in treatment of the disease, including medications and immunotherapy.
We have antibodies that directly bind to the myeloma cells and kill them. So that's very effective. We have a number of them.
Fonseca says there are also new therapies like CAR T, a cell therapy where a patient's T cells, a type of white blood cell, are taken and retrained through genetic engineering.
They can be given back to the person, but now they have a target, and that target is myeloma cells. And some of these treatments are highly, highly effective. In particular, the CAR T cells, we see that in some clinical trials, more than 90% of patients can have very deep responses.
For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
Small towns and cities in Texas are preparing to share the global spotlight for the total solar eclipse. While some counties have issued a disaster declaration ahead of record-breaking crowds, like in the city of Boerne, but they are ready. There's one couple who's visiting just to get married during the 3-minute, 23-second totality. The city's director of communications says leaders have worked behind the scenes with authorities, businesses, and its Chamber of Commerce to be prepared for the surge of visitors.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We had quite a bit of cloud cover and cool weather. That north wind was kind of gusty today. We're going to stay in this kind of what I'm calling sweater weather pattern, but the weekend's looking pretty good. I'm going to be talking about that coming up right after this. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Lots of cloud cover, a few sprinkles that we had today, and you know, the weekend rain, well, it didn't come up to much of anything. I mean, we did get some. We had a half an inch on Friday, a 1/100th of an inch on Saturday, and about 4/10 on Sunday. But I do know that some people did get wet over the weekend. But it was not nearly as intense as we thought it was going to be. These are your forecast highs for tomorrow. Get a load of that. 63 is our high tomorrow, and then 60 in San Antonio, 66 down in Corpus Christi, 67 in Houston. So I'm calling it sweater weather for at least 2-3 days, but get a load of your temperature. It will be on the rise. By Thursday, we'll be into the mid-70s, and then we'll start getting up to near 80 degrees by the coming weekend. So perfect for spring breakers, I imagine. Here's, of course, the big picture, and you see that area of low pressure out over Arizona. That is what we call an upper air storm. In other words, there's no low pressure on the ground. It's actually in the mid atmospheres, and that is going to be drifting toward us, and that's going to be our next weather maker. As we can go through Wednesday, you can see right about here it gets into the panhandle, and as we go to Thursday, all of a sudden we've got another shot at some rainfall around here as that system moves overhead. But it's shall we say, not associated with a cold front, although I had to write something down, but it will give us a northwest wind after it passes, so that by the time we get to Friday, A, we dry up, B, we see a lot more sun, and D, the higher pressure starts moving up from the southwest, so all of a sudden we've got all the ingredients to get back to a pretty warm and relatively sunny kind of weekend. So I'm making up for this past weekend, which was kind of cloudy and gloomy, but next weekend is looking a whole lot better. Take a look at your day planner for those of you in Port Lavaca. Getting up to partly cloudy, but only staying in the mid-60s. So yes, it's on the chilly side, and at least the wind will not be as strong out of the north. We'll stay cloudy in Cuero, and we'll get up to about only 61. So on the cool side for tomorrow. And we take a look at the extended forecast, and here we go. Wednesday night late, I'm talking after sundown, we may pick up a little bit of rain activity, but most of it will be on Thursday when that upper storm moves overhead and gives us a shot at some scattered showers. At this point in time, I'm going to back off on guessing how much rain we're going to get out of this, but let's just say it looks like it'll be damp on Thursday. And then we pick up a northwest wind on Friday, and the weekend, well, with sunshine, higher pressure, and drier air, we start warming up to the upper 70s, almost 80 degrees. So I'm making up for you for this rather cloudy weekend of spring break. That is your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. If you scan that, put Crossroads Today on your phone, we'll be able to reach out to you in case there's any kind of break in weather. We'll toss it back to Karina.
Thank you, Mac. Coming up next on 25 News Now at 5, we're going to take a look at your stocks. Plus, Sports Illustrated has avoided a shutdown and gets a fresh start under a new publisher. Taking a look at your stocks, the Dow up 76 points, the S&P 500 up 32 points, and the Nasdaq up 130 points. Oil up $1.68, closing at $82.72 a barrel. Sports Illustrated is getting a new publishing deal. Authentic Brands Group announced it today. They own the magazine's intellectual property rights. The news comes after several months of the company experiencing widespread layoffs and an artificial intelligence scandal and the departure of senior executives. Authentic has found a new publisher in Minute Media, a London-based sports digital media company. Gas prices are higher than they've been all year. AAA reports the national average price for regular gas rose to $3.47 a gallon today. That's up from $3.45 a year ago. Industry experts say while demand usually increases as the weather warms up, other factors are causing prices to skyrocket, specifically recent drone attacks on Russian oil refineries and refinery outages caused by extreme cold over the winter. Bringing us to your beer poll this afternoon, the question is, have you felt the surge in gas prices? Yes or no? We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part, and we're going to have an update on 25 News Now at 6. And stay with us. We're going to take one last look at your forecast with Mac. Plus, the famous cherry blossoms in the nation's capital have hit their peak bloom a bit early this year. Plus, here's a look at world news tonight, right after 25 News Now at 5.
News involving Donald Trump. His lawyers say he cannot come up with the money he owes the court. So what happens next? New video released of that missing college student. The deep freeze across several states, the warnings, and with so many questions, the first video tonight of Princess Catherine next.
The cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. are at full bloom, which is much earlier than expected. This is the second earliest peak bloom for the famed cherry blossoms on record, missing the mark set in 1990 by just 2 days. There are 6 stages to the blooming season, with the peak bloom coming when 70% of blossoms open for the spring season. Fun fact, the trees were a gift from the Japanese government in 1912. Mac, I'm sure you already knew that, seeing the historian that you are.
We had good relations back then.
Well, they have become very popular,
yeah.
and they're a big destination spot in our nation's capital.
Absolutely huge. And so you just mentioned that they're blooming so much earlier because of the early heat.
And you called that one.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. and here's the funny part. Tomorrow and the next couple of days, we may have a little bit of a freeze down there. So I hope that that's always the concern.
Yeah.
The early bloom and then a last late season freeze will get them. So I hope they do well.
But, you know, speaking of it freezing, it seems like we're going to have like a pretty chilly weather
Yeah, for the next 3 days. In fact, the high tomorrow is only 63. So that's going to require some sort of jacket or a sweater or something like that. There is a frontal system coming through. It's not really a front. It's kind of an upper air storm, but we do have a shot at rain on Thursday. That's okay, but there's a reward at the end of this. You see, next weekend, we're going to be upper 70s with sunny conditions. And so if you're on spring break, wait till next weekend.
You know, I never...
This weekend was too chilly.
Yes, I never complain about the rain because we can always use some rain.
Absolutely.
But this weekend was St. Patty's, and that was kind of a...
Of course.
Kind of a bummer.
Well, yeah, it was. But, you know, St. Patrick's Day, I believe they say Erin go Bragh, which means Ireland forever.
Okay.
So,
well, I couldn't keep up with the Irish over the weekend, so that's their weekend for sure.
You know, when the Irish first came, they were drafted into the army, and they went down to Mexico to fight in the U.S.-Mexico War, and the St. Patrick's, the San Patricios, decided to switch to help the Mexican people because of the U.S. Army coming in on slot. So, see, they like to drink. We like to drink.
History man right here. Thank you for joining us for 25 News Now at 5.